Welcome to the Cover 4 podcast. I'm Nolan Kangas. That's Bradshaw Furlong, Jeff Wall, and Luca Moia. We are continuing the draft grades. Obviously, 2021 NFL draft just finished up. So we're going to try and give you all the information we absorbed from this weekend and give some grades. And I'm going to get started right away here, guys. Let's go AFC North. This is the team I am slating right away to win the AFC North. I already put money down. It is the Cleveland Browns. I'm telling you right now, this team for me won the draft. Let's just go through it. A couple names. Greg Newsome the second. Caleb Farley goes before him. I was surprised. People I guess the Titans like the medicals that they got from Farley, but Newsome, his hips are fantastic. He's going to play opposite of Denzel Ward. The secondary in Cleveland, it went from crap to pretty solid. Troy Hill's going to play in the slot. You already have John Johnson. You already have Ronnie Harrison, Denzel Ward. The secondary, solid, right? The linebackers, that was an issue. Oh, in the second round, they get Jeff's number one linebacker in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, can cover, can hit. He's fantastic. I mentioned in our last episode, there was concerns with his heart. Doctors checked it out. They said he's good to go. He's going to be perfect for Cleveland. In the third round, they needed some speed in this offense, and they got it. Anthony Schwartz from Auburn, he runs like a 4.2 40, and he can catch the ball too. He's not strictly a burner. Like Jarvis Landry over the middle, you're going to have, obviously, OBJ doing his thing. Rashard Higgins is an okay piece. Donovan Peoples-Jones is an okay piece. Schwartz as well, just adding more speed for Baker Mayfield's big-time arm. James Hudson, big size tackle. They're already set. They already have one of the best offensive linemen in football. Guess what? If somebody goes down, there's a guy who can fill a hole. And then Tommy Togiai out of USC. A lot of people liked him, and he fell quite a bit as well, but that's another guy who can stuff the run. Then you have Bradshaw's guy in the fifth round. Tony Fields the second. Don't know how much he's going to get on the field, but guess what? Smart. Bradshaw giving me a dirty look. Come on. But smart player, veteran, not the crazy athleticism, but what I put down is he's not going to get killed because on plays because his football IQ is there. He's seen a ton in the Big 12 and what they run there. So, if there's times he has to fill in for a JOK, he'll be okay in that spot. Safety out of Georgia, Richard LeCounte, the third. If you look at his grades from 20, I know I'm going through every single pick and it's pretty crazy. 2018 and 2019, an over 80 PFF grade, had a bad year this past season. The athleticism isn't there. But again, a guy like Fields where he's got a high football IQ and isn't going to get burned making a dumb mistake. And then one of my favorite picks, for a sixth rounder, I get it. Demetric Felton, right, from UCLA. He was one of my gems. He can play running back. He can play in the slot. I already mentioned they have tons of weapons. It's just a more, another depth piece. What happens if Kareem Hunt goes down? Here's your RB2. Even though he says he wants to play receiver, he's played a little bit of running back at UCLA. He has the speed. He can catch out of the backfield. Guys, the draft for me was perfect. The draft for me is perfect. And I'm telling you right now, AFC Championship in January is going to be Kansas City and Cleveland. I am that high on this team. You have the O-line now. You have the weapons. I think you have the quarterback. You have the best running back duo in football. And now you have edge rushers who can get after Patrick Mahomes. You have the linebackers set who can cover. And the secondary is revamped. I loved everything Cleveland did. Did anybody give them worse than a B?
No, I did at least. I gave them an A+ too, Nolan. I think they hit it out of the park. This is my favorite draft overall. They absolutely killed it. If I only had one thing to say, because I'm not personally that sure about Baker Mayfield. I think there were some guys talented enough athletically, like Jamie Newman, Felipe Franks. I know Bradshaw's not very high on him, but I just think, why not take a chance, right? Why not take a hit on him with your sixth round pick instead of Demetric Felton? Maybe it's just if you teach him, maybe he's got something. I don't know. I think you got to take a few hits on your quarterback if you're not very sure. And it's always good to have a nice backup. But other than that, they absolutely killed it. I think they killed this entire offseason, and I think you're probably right, Nolan. I think that they will be in that AFC Championship conversation. Absolutely.
All righty. So that brings us, obviously I gave them an A+. That brings us to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they had the question everyone was asking, Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell. They end up going Jamar Chase. Who had the Bengals?
I did.
All right, Jeff, what do you have?
Okay, so I gave them a B plus. I don't really have a lot of issues with it. I think Joseph Asai, that's a really nice sneaky pick. You always need a little extra edge rush in the draft. Tyler Shelvin, good nose tackle as well. And Jackson Cameron, I do like, but I have a little bit of a problem with it, and I'll get to that in a sec. But let's talk about their first pick. I kind of alluded to it in the last episode with a Tua Tagovailoa, right? And getting a guy that can separate might be better for him. And in Joe Burrow's case, I kind of feel like maybe, just maybe, he's the kind of guy who's going to hold the ball until a guy's open or he's comfortable, like a guy can catch it, right? And Jamar Chase does it. And obviously he has a chemistry built in with him. And any draft can be a bust. My only thing is just like, to me, because of his injury, and you don't know where his mobility is going to be at, because obviously that's one of Joe Burrow's greatest skills is his mobility. Even if it's hampered for a year, that's going to affect him, right? And you're in a division that can really rush the quarterback for sure. I just kind of feel like Penei Sewell would have been better, just at least in terms of safety. I don't think Jamar Chase is that generational that you had to make him over, but I do understand it. And you know what? If they have a good enough connection where Jamar Chase gets open enough or allows him to throw the ball, get it out quicker, maybe that is the difference, right? Maybe we'll see something a little bit different in Cincinnati. But the thing with the Jackson Carman pick, if I just had to nitpick a little bit, for me is just that there was other guys there that you probably could have gotten. So they picked him 46th overall, and then just below him was Sam Cosmi. Dylan Randons, right? I just think that those guys are a little bit better in my opinion. Sam Cosmi to me has way more upside, right? And just why not have that guy first? I mean, again, if you're gonna wait later, I feel like you got to do that. But I also think you could have gotten Kendrick Green as well. I think you could have beefed up this offensive line a lot more, and they didn't, and that's kind of what prevented me from giving them into like that A kind of grade.
Yep, that's fair. I had kind of similar. I gave him a B. It's the offensive line. That's going to be the big question mark. I think they could have done a little bit more in the secondary there as well. I went back and watched some of Jackson Carman's tape against Ohio State. Chase Young, he was pretty good. Chase Young obviously created some pressure in that game. Obviously, I'm mentioning the one in the semifinal last year. But he wasn't bad at all. And that was one of the reasons why Rashawn Slater went so high, right? They went back, they saw, how did he do against NFL competition? He kicked butt. Like he was very, very good against Chase Young. So that was something that was interesting. He's going to slide in at guard to start, right? Because you already have Riley Reif, who they gave money to. Jonah Williams is, a player they still really, really like out of Alabama. So it's still going to be a questionable offensive line. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. I think that could be one of the better receiving trios we have, in the league. Once they all get developed, I think they're going to be that good. But guys, they're going to have to win games by scoring 30 plus. It's almost Falcons-esque. Sorry, Bradshaw, because
hey, I'm looking forward to it though.
Exactly. The defense still has some questions. Did anybody have anything else to add on the Bengals, or was it kind of more of the same of what Jeff said?
I mean, I think just personally, I think you always have to knock them down, maybe like a small point for taking a kicker. Anytime you take a kicker, what was it, 5th round kicker? Yeah. Anytime you're taking a kicker past this above the 6th round, you're getting a little bump down from me. It's overall a pretty solid draft, but please, guys, stop taking kickers high. Stop taking return specialists high. We'll get to that when we talk about the Falcons in a later episode. And stop taking punters high. Let's just not. And long snappers. A team took a long snapper this year. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, makes no sense. And I'm already used to teams like my Vikings taking kickers, and it never seems to work out for them. So kind of done with kickers getting drafted. Sorry. Baltimore Ravens. Who had the Ravens? All right, me.
One of the better drafts I thought of the draft weekend. I gave them an A-. Rashad Bateman obviously was, I think, the best pick of that draft for pretty obvious reasons. Jeff, big fan of Rashad Bateman, the resident Rashad Bateman fan club president. There we go. Odafe Owe was my kind of like bust pick, but when they got him, like at the end of the first round, the guys I liked more than Owe were all taken off the board, especially after the Saints went with Peyton Turner higher than Owe. So that was kind of funny. So I don't hate the Owe pick. I mean, like Joe Tryon went right after, and I would take Owe over Tryon. So I'm fine with that pick there. Ben Cleveland, my goodness. Can we talk about Ben Cleveland for a second? The man is 6'6", 343. Man is huge, and he ran a 92 percentile 40-yard dash. Like, the man's monstrous. He is an absolute monster. 30 reps on the bench. Give me some Ben Cleveland highlights this year, Baltimore. Put him on the line right away. Let's get him going. I'm so excited to watch some Ben Cleveland this year. Brandon Stevens wasn't huge on that pick. There were, again, like we talked about in the last episode, there were athletic corners like Marco Wilson I liked a little bit later, but I think they're fine for secondary help. He's not going to play right away anyway, so he can get some time to develop a little bit. Tylan Wallace, I like that pick as well. Kind of another receiving option for them. Bateman's going to play. Obviously, he's going to be the headliner, but I think Tylan Wallace is going to give them some good reps when he gets into play. Shaun Wade, I like that cornerback pick better than the Brandon Stevens pick. I like taking a flyer on Shaun Wade, especially in the 5th round. That's a guy that, like, he obviously went through some issues last year. He had a very, very poor year, as Jeff probably saw watching Ohio State. But obviously, as he said, he was hampered by injuries all season, COVID year. You almost got to write that off. And if there's going to be a team that's going to develop Shaun Wade, it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. And then they took a fullback in the 5th round. I'm obviously moving over Dalen Hayes, but they took a fullback in Ben Mason, who's actually pretty athletic for his position. So, I mean, that's fine. They run a lot. They're probably going to use Ben Mason. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with him. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid draft, a very, very good draft for the Baltimore Ravens.
I thought the same thing. I gave him an A. Rashad Bateman, home run pick. He's going to, step in. If there's one guy who's challenging my Elijah Moore conversation about leading, the rookies in receiving yards, it's going to be Bateman, because he's going to step in, be wide receiver 1, and, just a big time option for Lamar Jackson. You mentioned Tylan Wallace. He was terrific at Oklahoma State, a seam guy down the sidelines. If Lamar Jackson can improve his accuracy in that area of the field, hello, that looks great. And you're right. I think the Shaun Wade pick, he fell a ton, and we expected that, right? Because like you mentioned, he was pretty bad this year, but goes into a great situation of Baltimore. They're not going to start him right away. I think he's more of a slot guy anyway. And he's a pretty solid tackler as well. So if he is playing in the slot, doesn't have that crazy speed, can help out and try and take on a tight end or take on a running back out of the backfield. I think that's really good. And I know this guy might not ever play. I believe our Darius Washington went undrafted, and I think he ended up in Baltimore. And he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, undersized guy, like 5'7", right? But that would be fun if he ends up getting some PT and making the team there. That would be really, kick ass for Baltimore, because they look really darn good right now. And again, they're at the top of the block there, them and Cleveland in this division. It's pretty stacked. One team that definitely didn't have a stacked draft, that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Am I right, Luca?
Oh, yeah. Steelers, a lot of head scratching throughout the weekend. Starting on Thursday, Najee Harris again. I know a lot of Steelers fans, they're excited. They think it's potential Bell 2.0, but hate to tell you, that offensive line had all pros and Pro Bowlers. And it was a very different offense back then, because you had, Antonio Brown. And I just think it might have been one of those picks where it was just like, it was an eye candy. Listen, the hurdle against Notre Dame, he was behind a great offensive line in Alabama, Mac Jones. Like, they were loaded with first-round talent. Alex Leatherwood went in the first round. Okay, say what you want to say, but he was a good left tackle for Alabama this past year. But people are thinking this is going to change the run game. It's not, because number one, they're not committed to running the football. And number two, they don't have a good offensive line, which is what they should have addressed in round 2. Instead, they went with the tight end from Penn State. And I still can't pronounce his name after months of doing research. Guys, help me out. Freiermuth, yeah. Freiermuth, yeah. Okay. Listen, we've talked about it. Nolan, Creed Humphrey, still there. Landon Dickerson, who the Eagles took, even him would have been a better pick. I just don't understand why they wouldn't go. I mean, Pouncey's gone. Get a center. Even get a guy on the offensive line. There's still good value there in round 2. Like, there are a lot of good players that fall because there's only 30 picks. So being a top 60 player is no shame. And they had potential to get one of the good offensive linemen, and they didn't. They took Kendrick Green out of Illinois in the 3rd. And the knock on him was his hand placement. I think that can be easily fixed at the next level. So that's a sneaky good pick by the Steelers. But then again, Dan Moore, like, how much of an impact is he going to have? I mean, they could have maybe taken a tackle in the 2nd round instead of the tight end. Buddy Johnson from Texas A&M, another Aggie they take. showed some potential, but at certain times he looked completely lost. Like he doesn't know what he's doing out there. So can they fix that? Because the linebacker, even though this defense is great, that's the weakest, I would say, position group on that defense. I think a great pick, though, that they did get was Quincy Roche. Guys. Yeah. Okay. Linebacker from Miami, or outside linebacker from Miami. I think that's a good value pick in round 6. He fell. He's a skilled guy. They need depth behind TJ Watt, because what's better than having one good pass rusher, having two? And the defensive line in the interior can get to the quarterback, create some pressure. And now you add in a guy like this, who's going to probably have to make an impact on special teams before he can really be a mainstay on the defensive line and getting into rotation. But I think the value there is pretty good. Other than that, it's kind of subpar for me. I'm giving them a C minus. I didn't like it at all, especially in the second round when they could have got good value there. 2 good centers on the board, or one best center in college football, I think, passed on it for a tight end. Like when you just took a running back. So how much are you really going to be throwing to the tight end? Claypool, like the ball can only go to so many people. So
I'm with you, Luca. I had same grade. I gave him a C minus, and I think they're kind of screwed over a lot by Big Ben's contract, right? And it keeps just coming back to that. The offensive line now sucks, right? You go Najee Harris, it's fun. I think in the last 4 drafts now, they've gone James Conner mid-round, Benny Snell mid-round, Anthony McFarland mid-round, and what did they just say? We're done with our mid-round running backs. Let's go one in the first round, and you get Najee Harris. You got to go offensive line in this situation when all these guys are getting up there in age. Freiermuth is interesting, and he's the second best tight end in this class, but that wasn't a need, right? Like Eric Ebron is an all right piece. Yes, drops the ball quite a bit, but you mentioned it. You already have all these receivers that you're throwing the ball to. Najee Harris is going to be catching the ball quite a bit, seemingly, if you're drafting him in the first round. So yes, the best pick was Kendrick Green. I think he's going to help quite a bit in the run game if they can figure it out, but I'm not excited if I'm a Steelers fan. I don't think it's sexy at all. Where does this team to you, to me, they're sitting third in the division, and depends how much, how far Big Ben drops off a little bit more this season. It could be worse than that. To me, they don't seem like a playoff team, and they had a lot of success against bad teams in one-score games. Their defense was pretty solid last year, obviously being one of the best in football. I don't see it this year with them. They scare me as a team just going in the wrong direction. Did anybody actually give them anything in a B or an A?
No, but I think like Najee Harris is a good running back. And I do think the fact that I think he's a really good receiving back is maybe they're thinking there, but you have a lot of picks, or you could have traded up in the second round to get him if you really wanted him versus other guys like Devontae Williams and whatnot. Pat Freiermuth, I like him. I think he's a good tight end, but yeah, you have Eric Ebron. Why would you do that? Kendrick Green, I really love. I'm surprised he fell into the third round. I really, really, really like him a lot. But yeah, you should have went tackle first round. Tevin Jenkins was there. Thank God you didn't take him. But hey, you took a running back instead. I think the talent right at the top, the first 3 picks, they're talented. But the placement of the picks and what else you might have gotten, I think they were just kind of all over the place. And I love Mike Tomlin, and he really let me down. So yeah, I felt some of thoughts to you guys. Also, by the way, Najee Harris, really nice guy. Seems like a great personality.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's no knock on Najee Harris. We all think he's a fantastic running back.
Yeah.
It's the value of the position, where you're taking it in that valuable first round. And what's the end goal for Najee Harris? Your best, time of the Steelers in the last, 6, 7, 8 years was seeing Le'Veon Bell run behind that offensive line. And maybe they're a little bit similar, right? Athletes, a little bit patient behind the line, and then, hit the hole and go. And obviously they can catch the ball out of the backfield too. But what happens if he's the same player as Le'Veon Bell? Then you got to pay him. And that's what the Steelers didn't really want to do with Le'Veon Bell. And look where it ended up. You're drafting a running back again in the first round. But again, Najee Harris, you mentioned it, Jeff, terrific story. Obviously during the draft, I believe he watched at a youth, basically homeless shelter, right? And he was with them, and that's where he grew up, and a tough life for him. And he's given it all back to the community and bought them all dinner, which is a fantastic story. I think you're right. And this guy is perfect for the community and all of that. I mean, that's phenomenal. But on the football side, how much is it going to impact? And that's what some Steelers fans are looking at. And It's not going to be ideal when it comes to the end of the year. NFC North, Jeff, I'll just give you the room.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Everyone back up. Everyone back up. Let Jeff have his moment.
Yep. That's right. Okay. First of all, sorry, fixing my camera here. What? I almost want to like retroactively grade this one because Ryan Pace, he's actually not done too bad in the middle of the rounds. He's always gotten some good guys, mid to late picks. But at the top of the draft, first and second, and obviously they didn't draft another pick until the 5th round. But the way he generally too, I just want to say the way he navigated the board was awesome. Like he was really, really good. It seems, obviously, I think we need to see more in the future, but it seems like Ryan Pace and the Bears organization has learned from their mistakes. They have fixed some things. They had to get lucky. They really, truly did to get the guys that fell to them, like the top 2, Tevin Jenkins, and of course, Justin Fields. Obviously, I didn't really get a chance to say how incredibly excited I am as a Chicago Bears and Ohio State fan. Just the combination of the two and how we all thought it could never happen, that he would just fall the way he fell, and he did. And the Bears move up to get him. It was a dream come true. There's already a video on the Lingo Sports page. If you want, we'll link that for you when we set this video for, so you can kind of get a sense of how excited I was about Justin Fields and how I think it's just a home run pick. I think just to point out, let's say in a world where Mac Jones falls to them, I think with how bad the offensive line is, and now with letting go of Charles Leno the other day, that to me, like Mac Jones would have been destroyed. He just would have been completely killed because I don't think he's got enough mobility. Whereas Justin Fields, probably in terms of top speed, the fastest quarterback out of the top 5 guys, right? And then Tevin Jenkins, to me, big time move there. He was one of my favorite tackles. I think he's got a lot of upside. He's a mean SOB. So I think that was awesome. And the way that they traded up to get him was really, really good. They addressed part of their offensive line. Then they get Larry Borum. And I do like the fact that they got him, and he's a massive guy as well. Pretty big time there. My one issue realistically was Khalil Herbert. I know they got him in the 6th round, and obviously that in terms of that, it's very good value. I think he'll be a good piece. But to me, I think for Larry Borum, there was guys like Jamar Johnson, one of my favorite safeties. And I understand though, I do get it. You want to go offensive line, especially right now, because I think that's probably the biggest weakness on this team, aside from quarterback. But when you get Justin Fields, and if you're Ryan Pace and you're Matt Nagy and your job's on the line, make sure Justin Fields does a lot better, because the defense is good enough to the point where you could get away with a lot of things. But I do think that they maybe should have tried to navigate and go up and get Jamar Johnson, because I think he's a special guy that fell way too far in this draft that probably would have made a really big impact and changed a lot of what they could do on defense with his ability to cover and his intelligence in the middle of the field. So for me, I'll give them an A, because I just thought it was that good. The way they navigated the board was pretty much the most, other than just the general value, was to me the best thing about it.
I similar grade. Obviously, I gave him an A+. I think going to get your quarterback for the future and not being afraid to move those picks to go and get him was perfect. And obviously Tevin Jenkins falling out of the 1st round. There's your right tackle, Larry Borum. I believe he had an over 90 grade at, for PFF metric in the SEC too. That's obviously promising. This isn't in the MAC or anything like that. Like, he's facing good guys. And then Daz Newsome as well. I think that's another solid piece at the wide receiver position, because I think that's going to be a question mark, right? Justin Fields, yes, he has Allen Robinson, and maybe you can hold on to him now, because here's your quarterback of the future who's really accurate with ball placement, like Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky weren't. And then obviously we have Darnell Mooney over the middle of the field. Anthony Miller's situation a little bit unclear, but you're right. Khalil Herbert, odd pick, right? David Montgomery. I believe you guys still have Tariq Cohen, right? So there's already your 2 backs. I don't know why you needed to go grab Herbert, but for the amount of picks you guys had, which was limited, and going up and not being afraid to move that 1st rounder next year to go and get the quarterback who, people think could end up being the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd best quarterback in this class. Come on. Like, he lands in a good situation as well. So I think it was a home run. I don't think anybody else obviously is disagreeing with that and giving them a B or a C or anything, right?
Nope.
Sounds good. Detroit Lions. They could have gone every which direction on the board. They're going to be bad next year regardless. But Luca, what do you think of their draft?
They drafted literally everybody who has a complicated last name. Like, it was just unbelievable. I'm looking, I'm like, holy. I said, okay, all these. Let's start with Penei Sewell, of course. I don't think he was going to fall that much more. And they went out there like, you know what? Listen, we don't have a lot of weapons. Quarterback situation's up in the air. Well, the least we could do is protect them. And they did. They got the left tackle there. The offensive line is starting to come together a little bit. They got 2 good tackles. Again, though, the roster around them, not great. But the receivers, I mean, maybe you go Devontae Smith here. It might have been a bit early for them. But again, what could Jared Goff do? Because we saw with the Rams, he had a great head coach, great pieces around him, got them to a Super Bowl. But after that, he kind of, once there was no run game, he kind of became one-dimensional, and it was easy to figure him out. So he's going to have a tough time, I think. Round 2, again, another long name I'm going to pronounce here. Levi Onwuzurike. I think I got that pretty good.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah. Listen, he was the second best D tackle. I think we can agree Christian Barmore, like we said in the last episode, was the best, but he's going to help out the middle of that defensive line. They tried every single free agency, it seems like, to get guys on the defensive line. And whether you want to say they're all Patriots because Matt Patricia was there with Trey Flowers and Danny Shelton and all of them, didn't pan out. They got him. And then in the 3rd round, they get Ali McNeil. And he was great. I think he was like all AP, all second team. He's a really good guy to put in the middle. They're taking the approach of the football team. Right? Go on the defensive line, get on the offensive line. That is where the game is won besides the guy behind center. And that's where they really attacked. And good value here, Jeff. I think you really like this guy, Melifanu from Syracuse. He fell in the draft a little bit. They got good value there. So now the secondary they addressed. I think the needs that they went for was pretty good. The guys that they were getting completely opposite to what the Steelers did and just ignoring what they needed. They actually got out guys that they needed. Even if you don't think they were good, they're going to help out this football team. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, another complicated name. But again, a lot of people were high on him out of USC. Not the most flashy pick. He isn't going to change the offense, but they went out, got a weapon for Jared Goff later, which a lot of guys thought maybe he was a round 3 type of guy. They got him in the 4th round. So I think the Detroit Lions are pretty good. I'm going to give him a B+. If Aaron Rodgers leaves this division, they got a shot of not being last. So maybe, just maybe, this is the draft class that will put them back on track. And Dan Campbell seemed pretty fired up about the picks that he was getting. So I think Detroit fans, they should be a bit happier after seeing their draft class.
Yeah, I gave him an A-. And I think when you're getting arguably the best player in the draft, and Penei Sewell at 7, that's great value, and he's going to be the cornerstone for their franchise. And that was really cool to see the war room after, see how fired up they were to go and get him, saying you're going to change the franchise. And that's cool to say for a tackle, right? Like, that's really exciting stuff. Getting both the D tackles, Ali McNeil, obviously, if you don't know him as well, big dude, but man, he can move those feet. He's a fun player. Amon-Ra, it's going to be interesting because I think at USC people expected a little bit more, but then in sometimes big games, I believe it was against UCLA, he kind of shined a little bit. So is he going to be the wide receiver 1? Right? You got Tyrell Williams, Quintez Cephas. They need some help there. But regardless, I think we know Detroit's not going to be a good football team. They're looking forward to the coming years. But you're right. I definitely think they hit on some picks here. Anybody have anything different there, or anything drastically different?
Not really. No, I agree. I think this was one of the top 3, to be honest with you, with the draft classes. In my opinion, I think they did a really, really good job. I think this is maybe the one team where I would say, there's no real point in attacking a quarterback because I think you really want to build around the future. I don't think anybody thinks Jared Goff is the future, but he's decent enough that if you actually did give him some pieces here and there for the next 2 years, if you don't happen to find a quarterback in the next draft, that he can figure some things out. He can keep you afloat. He can kind of move things along, but not get you too high that you get out of, those really sweet, juicy picks in the top of each round. I do kind of like the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick in the later rounds. Derek Barnes, I really like too. Jamar Jefferson, another good guy, especially, with that running back hole being there forever for the Detroit Lions. Ivitu Melifanu, I really like him a lot. As well too, I think this is kind of interesting because we were talking about JC Horn and how physical he is, and maybe he's a little bit too physical now with the NFL just almost completely just doing away with bump and run, physical coverage kind of guys. Melifowanu's tall, but he's not a very physical guy, but he's a good athlete. I think we may see that kind of be the prototype, because if you're athletic and you're tall, it's just generally hard to get around you. You have those movement skills, and obviously you can have the skills to cover. That's a pretty tough physical skill set to get around. I think that's the kind of guy the NFL might start to see a shift to. I think that's a pretty big steal, to be completely honest with you. And I just think overall they did a really good job improving their team. Will they be drafting in the top 10 next year? Yeah, probably, but that's kind of a good thing.
I think something that's going to be interesting with them is how well does Jared Goff play, because you're hoping he's kind of this quarterback who has had one good year. I don't think you want him playing well enough to a point where he pushes you out of the top 8 picks. And then you're in that situation Carolina just was, where you missed out on going to get Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson. And then you have question marks of, damn, we just went and got Sam Darnold. And then you're not really, willing to go, bite on Justin Fields, right? So I hope they don't get in that situation. I hope they see that there's talent there at the quarterback position in 2022 at the top of the draft. Speaking of quarterback talent, Aaron Rodgers, we know the situation there. Green Bay Packers, their draft, it seems like it's the same thing every other year, eh, Bradshaw?
Yeah, I was struggling between a C and a C minus for this one. Let's have at it. Eric Stokes, not what I would have done at all. If you're committed to take a corner there, Asante Samuel Jr. is on the board. The more obvious pick, Elijah Moore, was just sitting there staring you in the face. Let's pass on him, I guess, and we'll get a corner that's, I have no problem taking athletic corners, but not there when there are better guys on the board. You took a developmental corner at a pick where you need a starter. You need a starter here, and Eric Stokes should not be starting right away. So you're putting him in a position to fail at that point. Josh Myers, the pick right after was Creed Humphrey. So again, just all around, not a good pick there. I would have taken Creed Humphrey. I think there was a receiver still on the board that I liked. De'Ami Brown was still on the board. Could have taken him. Again, just passing up needs at this point. And then you take Amari Rodgers, who wasn't even my favorite receiver on the board at the time. Jalen Darden was still there. Amon-Ra St. Brown was on the board at the time. I just what are you guys doing? You're like, oh, we gave you a weapon, but it's not even a guy that's going to be useful to you. So congratulations. Royce Newman, fine. I think he's a relatively athletic guy. We're not sure if he's playing tackle or guard. Just any help on the O-line, I guess. They're just decided we'll get someone for the O-line. He can help us out. You already took Josh Myers, so I don't really see the need for Royce Newman. But Tadarius Slayton, pretty athletic guy, solid pick. D-line help is nice. Shamar Jean-Charles, I like that pick more than Eric Stokes. I think Shamar Jean-Charles is probably going to start before Eric Stokes will. And maybe not actually. They might just force Eric Stokes into being a starter, but Shamar Jean-Charles, I think, is a better corner from day one than Eric Stokes. I think Stokes has a higher upside, but Jean-Charles is a really nice pick. Cole Van Lanen, another athletic guy, pretty solid pick. And then Isaiah McDuffie, didn't know a ton about him. And then Kylan Hill, just let's take a running back because we have enough of them. Why the hell not? Here's another weapon for you, Aaron. Just hand the ball off to him. Oh, Aaron's not even going to be there, so it doesn't really matter. This is just an overall bad draft. You took, even when you avoided the needs that you had, you still took bad players at those picks when you drafted Eric Stokes, so you drafted Josh Myers, and you just avoided giving Aaron Rodgers at least a little bit of happiness and trying to rebuild that relationship a little bit. I know they needed a corner. I absolutely know you need to replace Kevin King, but Eric Stokes is not that. You could have taken Asante Samuel Jr. He's right there. This is such a bad draft, and they're just doing it again. They're just picking guys that aren't going to impact them year one when you're trying to win right away. You're a team that has a window and it's closing because Aaron Rodgers is trying to leave and getting older. You have a window that's closing and you're not optimizing that window to succeed. The Atlanta Falcons aren't even they aren't even a win now team, and they gave Matt Ryan better picks and better players to support him now. And actually, keep that window while, as small as that window may be, they are giving him at least a window and an opportunity to succeed in his advanced age. They're not doing that with it. They're just all right, Aaron Rodgers is going to we're going to, tie one arm behind his back and hopefully he can do what he can with Devontae Adams. It's every year with this team. And I can't imagine being a Packers fan and watching this. Eric, I just can't get over the Eric Stokes pick. It was so bad. That's the worst pick of the first round, in my opinion. over Peyton Turner. That was by far the worst pick. You avoided a clear need, and then you took a worse corner, a guy that you could have gotten probably at least in the second round, probably in the third as a developmental corner. This was a bad draft.
I think you hit the nail on the head there earlier in your rant. I'm saying with teams who are on a win now window, or like have that win now window, is you want to get players who are going to make an impact on day one. Whereas you look at teams like Jacksonville and the Jets, you're fine taking that player is going to develop because it's for the future. It's for that 2-3 years, right? They don't do that. They haven't done that the last 2 years, right? Think of their, first rounder last year. Jordan Love isn't going to play. Hasn't been active for any of these games, right? Awful pick. And then they come out, just recently, I think it was today. They said, well, we wanted to go get Justin Jefferson. We wanted Brandon Ayuk. If you wanted him, go up and get him.
Mm-hmm.
You traded up enough to get Jordan Love. Trade up a little bit more and actually go get someone who's going to make an impact that day. Doesn't make sense. Stokes, you're right. Speedy guy, right? 4'3".
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes speedy corners don't always hit, right? And you need someone who's actually a little bit decent in coverage to, start on day one. Kevin King, we know, was a mess. I think you're right. I think this draft has kind of been a mess, and it has been a mess the last 2 years. I gave him a C as well. Who of this draft steps in and you go, yep, they're going to be playing. They're going to be getting some, important reps? I don't see anybody.
I actually do kind of like Amari Rodgers. I'm not going to lie. I do. I like Amari Rodgers. I think he's pretty good. I just totally agree with you guys though that and also I like Josh Myers too. Maybe that's Ohio State bias. But there were so many interior offensive linemen you could have picked over him. There were so many receivers you could have picked in that spot. Like I also don't mind the Eric Stokes pick because I think I kind of rate him a little bit higher than you guys might. I see a little bit more physicality in him as well on top of the speed. He's super high upset, but I agree. You could have picked him in the second there where you picked Josh Myers. You could have I would have picked De'Amon Brown in the first round. Honestly, I don't think, or Elijah Moore or Rondell Moore. I mean, but I just think that there was a lot of guys you could have picked better. Instead you sabotage yourself, and I'm cool with it because you're the Green Bay Packers and I got to laugh at Caleb Tilley. So it's all good. And also, how many picks do they have here? Just because it's currency, right? They had 9 picks. And like what you guys are saying is like, oh, well, we wanted to get them. Well, it's not like you have to stay there. You can move up and you can do something. It was like Luca's awesome rant a couple episodes ago, which you guys can check out. Like, no one tells you have to stay there. Go be aggressive. Go get your guy. And when you're in win now mode and you're just a few pieces away, because you were literally a dumb holding call or pass interference call away from a Super Bowl berth, and probably could have won it with that bad offensive line the Kansas City Chiefs had. My God, just go up and get the best goddamn receiver in Rashad Bateman, which you could have gotten and you didn't. So I don't know, but whatever. It looks like Aaron Rodgers is on the way out. So long. Happy trails. And too bad Green Bay Packers fans.
And that was the talk too, was like, oh, they were interested in Rashad Bateman. They were doing all this research. Go and get him then. Right. And, Amari Rodgers is a crafty player, right? A smaller guy, plays in the slot, can do a lot of things behind the line of scrimmage as well with the jet sweeps and stuff like that. But I still think if you want a guy in a little bit more creativity, Elijah Moore, probably the better prospect. Amari Rodgers a little bit older too, right? Like it just nothing here really seems to fit. And that's why Aaron Rodgers is upset, right? You're getting nothing that's going to help him out. Luca, and you had anything different?
Yeah, I would have given them an F. I'm going to be completely honest. I would have given first. I think they were 2 picks away from Baltimore. You can't move up 3 picks.
Yep.
Okay, give me a break. And then number 2, your quarterback literally the day of the draft says, I want out. I think they flew to his house to try to convince him and said, watch what we do here. We're going to give you a good secondary. And you pick a corner that should have probably went in round 2 or 3. I don't understand. He's a generational guy. People take him for granted, and now he's going to leave your team, and he's going to leave you picking in the top 15 for the next 5 years because when he went down a couple seasons ago, Deshaun Kaiser, who's out of the league, took that team to overtime. And that was the Cleveland Browns who didn't even get a win, I don't think, that year. So let's see how this roster does without Aaron Rodgers. You pissed them off, and then you pissed them off that same day by not taking an offensive guy that could have helped them. They're a mess. It's an F. Move on. I don't care. I really don't care, honestly.
Love it. I love to see it. Let's move on to my Minnesota Vikings. Guys, the start of the draft, for me, I was like, sweet, going to be another A+, because I think their draft last year was pretty solid. Obviously, the trade down to get Christian Darius, who I wanted at 14. I mentioned this on the last one, that you had the 2 third-round picks. And then after that, it got a little interesting. I think Kellen Mond in the 3rd round, a developmental quarterback. We know the success rate with 3rd-round quarterbacks isn't too great. There is some upside. I think he has a cannon of an arm. I think he's athletic, a little bit more robotic, though, and has some placement and accuracy issues. But, hey, if Kirk starts to suck, midway through the year, we remember last year, they got off to I believe it was a 1-5 start. Kirk was playing horrible, and then he turned it around later in the year. But maybe they're going to be calling for Kellen Mond to be getting some reps, but I don't think he'll be starting. Obviously it's going to be Kirk's job, but I think it's an interesting piece that someone who can develop. Chaz Surratt, another guy, he was a former quarterback, ends up moving to linebacker. You never see that switch. The only difference for me that, Surratt is questionable is really short arms, which can kind of hurt you moving side to side and in the, getting some tackles. But I still think he's smart enough. You've seen the quarterback position, where, stuff's going to align. You're not, he's a smart player, was fine at North Carolina, decent pro day, good athleticism. My favorite pick probably in the 3rd round, Wyatt Davis, a little bit of injury concern, which is why he fell. But guess what? He was dominant at Ohio State, and they've shored up this offensive line. Christian Darius, Wyatt Davis. If it's Dakota Dozier, I'm going to stab my eyes out. Garrett Bradbury. They have Ezra Cleveland, right guard, who they picked last year, and I like that pick, and an O'Neal at the right tackle. They finally, it seems to me that they've figured it out, which is good to see. After that, everything's really interesting. Patrick Jones the second, good sack numbers, horrible pro day. The numbers were all over the place, but again, 19 sacks in the last 2 years. They take the kid from Iowa State, who's going to be their kick returner. Why are you taking someone like that in the 4th round? Doesn't make sense. Cameron Bynum, great ball skills as a corner. They're turning him into a safety. So that's interesting as well, right? Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. The next pick that I actually did like was in the 5th round, Amir Smith-Marcette out of Iowa, burner. He's actually going to potentially get on the field for a 5th rounder. Yeah, he can do stuff in the kick return game because he's just speedy. You watch his play at Iowa, he just gets open, down the middle of the field, and they don't have that. With Justin Jefferson, fantastic off the line of scrimmage. He can separate really, really well, but he's not going to kill you with his speed, right? Adam Thielen getting up there in age, terrific route runner, can separate, not going to kill you with his speed. Here's a guy over the middle of the field where Kirk can find occasionally with those 40-yard, 50-yard shots. Chad Beebe is not the guy as your wide receiver 3. So that pick I liked, but I gave him a B. I think, I still think the whole question mark here was that they wanted to go get Justin Fields. They end up not doing that. I don't think they were willing to move from 14, where they were slated, to go up to 11, only 3 spots, and give up a 1st rounder. And obviously Chicago was willing to include that first, but that's okay. Still get some developmental pieces, but I thought it was all right. Did anybody have anything different with Minnesota?
They're a run-heavy team, and I think Wyatt Davis that was my favorite pick for the Vikings. Darius, again, moving back, getting more picks, but he was a good starter. I like these guys on these big teams. They go under the radar because there's so much talent around them. They're like, okay, well, they're on a big team. They move down, but I like that pick, especially on the inside. Dalvin Cook, he's going to have another great year. They got 2 starters on the offensive line. Kirk Cousins, you said, didn't have a good year, but he thrives on play action. So you address the offensive line. Run game is going to be just as good, and I think Kirk will have a good year. Vikings could be on the come up, Nolan. Get excited a little bit.
I think you're right. Play action, that gives him a little bit more time to find those receivers who can get open right away. Bradshaw, Jeff, anything else before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I mean, I do like the fact that you move back and still get one of the best tackles in the draft. I love the Wyatt Davis pick. I think that's going to be huge because I think the biggest issue for the Minnesota Vikings has really been their inability to keep, Kirk Cousins' jersey clean for the most part. And I think, like you guys were saying, with the rolling out the play action, the bootlegs, all that stuff, with Dalvin Cook as well, we'll probably have a fantasy episode coming up soon as well. So you should keep an eye out for that, but that's going to be big for him as well. And I think what you were saying with the Amir Smith-Marcette, that's a great guy for play action, right? If you got a guy who can burn you and gash you for every mistake you make, that's awesome. That's really, really good. I think they're almost going to be one of those guys that's going to be on the cusp of that kind of that final seed for the playoffs. Now, I think you guys did a really good job here. I give it a B+.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. The one thing also I didn't really like, we've mentioned it on past episodes, Don't go corner. Jeff Gladney, don't know if he's going to play another down, but you're kind of really betting on Cameron Dantzler. They don't pick up the 5th-year option for Mike Hughes, and then Patrick Peterson's getting up there in age, obviously a 1-year, $10 million deal. Their secondary was a nightmare last year. Can they figure it out this year? We'll see about that. But guys, that's going to do it for these draft grades. Right? So that was the AFC North and the NFC North. It was fun. We're going to have more coming this week. We'll do obviously the West, the South, some fun ones there. And of course, we'll touch on all of our thoughts on the number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, in a later episode. Guys, that's the Cover 4 podcast. That's Bradshaw, Jeff, Luca. I'm Nolan. We'll see you guys soon.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.